Hey, friends, welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and today I am super excited to have my new breasty friend from across the country, Gillian Lichota. And Gillian is the founder and CEO of iRise Above Foundation, a nonprofit US based organization dedicated to empowering, inspiring, and supporting young women to cultivate an outstanding quality of life during and after breast cancer. She is also a mother, marine biologist, mountain climber, adventure travel enthusiast, and breast cancer thriver. Well, hello, Jillian. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, I know that it is noon your time. It's 9 o'clock my time, and I'm sitting around a bunch of smoke in our area. I'm in Reno, Nevada, and we have a terrible fire going on right now. And so I'm like, I'm doing this. We got to get on here and do an interview with you. We've talked a couple of times and we've also texted. And so we've been in touch. We've had conversations. And now it's time for you to help our audience understand who you are and what your lived experience is. So I would love to be able to start out with um, sharing with our audience who Jillian was before she found out she had breast cancer. Who
Well,
are you?
who am I? That's a really interesting question, and it's a bit of a journey that I've been on this year in particular. I've started writing a memoir essay as part of the Desert to Mountaintops anthology series, and the theme for this anthology is the pilgrimage of motherhood, and so the lead author, Jessica Buchanan, reached out to me about writing an experiential essay on my experience with breast cancer in the context of motherhood. And it really kind of forced me to to dig deep, to delve deep inside of who I actually am, and who I was before breast cancer is certainly central to that theme. And so, had you asked me this before I started into that sort of journey of writing, my answer probably would have been a bit different. The process of the writing has been very cathartic, and there's a lot that I've come to realize about who I was before breast cancer.
Mhm.
And so I guess, mostly people start out talking about, what their profession and what they did. And so by professional training, I am a marine biologist, and I grew up in Canada, and that's where I'm from, and specialized in Arctic marine sciences. And I was really interested in looking at how climate change affects biodiversity. And so that was my focus. I ended up in the Washington, D.C. area doing, I have a research position at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum.
Oh,
So that's,
cool.
yeah, super cool. So that's what brought me to this area. And from there, I ended up working for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, in their climate program office is where I ended up as their a chief scientist there. And so I had a really wonderful, fun career path. I have no regrets. It was amazing. I saw lots of things, and I was a workhorse. And I think I felt that I had a lot to prove to who I don't know, but I think very familiar to a lot of women who work professionally, maybe in the sciences, maybe it's in some other career path, but I was definitely burning the candle at both ends. I was working many, many hours per week and traveling. And at that time, I didn't have children. So, I didn't have the kind of obligations that I currently have. So I didn't really stop to think about how it affected my well-being at that time. Um, I probably could have put more thought into self-care, but I was at that prior to breast cancer. I really was at that prime of my life in terms of my health. I was very active doing triathlons, and I love travel. So I was very into traveling all over the world, very remote, off the beaten path kind of places. Um, and then that thing called breast cancer hit. So it changed everything.
Yeah, it does change everything. You have been a big deal. You have a lot that you have done, and I noticed that you said that you felt like maybe you were trying to prove something to someone. Maybe that was to yourself. Maybe that was to some of your colleagues or parents or whoever. Just um, someone. And I feel like that's sort of how I was when I was teaching because I was retired. Had just retired from a 20-year career from teaching social studies. And I have a husband who teaches social studies. So all of my entire career, I always was trying to prove something to someone as
Mm.
if I wasn't, like I knew I was a good teacher. I know that I impacted a lot of students. I loved what I did. I continued my education throughout the whole entire time. I worked my ass off my entire career, but always felt like I was trying to prove something to someone. So it's interesting that you said that. Okay, so breast cancer hits. We know how much that, and by the way, you mentioned also that if I would have asked you that question prior to your experience, your other experience, this is why I ask that is because in our survivorship, we have more lived experience that helps us uncover so much more that we never even realized. And I think that's just such a common theme
Mhm.
with all of us who have gone through breast cancer. So that's very interesting. So what was your diagnosis? What were your treatments like? Can you share all of that with us?
Yeah. So um, the same day that I found out I was pregnant with my son, I found out I had breast cancer. And that was a real gut punch for me because I had gone through several years of grueling infertility treatments. And if I'm sure there's people watching who can understand that journey, is I thought that was the most difficult thing that I was going to go through. Um, my husband and I, we lost a pregnancy in the second trimester, just 6 months before my breast cancer diagnosis. And that was awful. Um, and it's not something that is talked about very much, miscarriages. It was never on my radar that that was something that might happen, and nobody talked about it. So that was a very isolating experience in and of itself. Um, and so I was overjoyed to find out that I was pregnant, but then also to find out that I had
Yeah.
pregnancy related breast cancer. My dream of becoming a mother was quite literally going to kill me. So I had some very tough decisions to make. And I was really grateful that my husband was 100% behind whatever I chose for my body. And
Thank you.
yes, I just had to put that in there because I'm
Thank
finding it the dialogue, the discourse going on right now around the election and women's rights. I was in a very, very tricky spot because I had a couple options in front of me. I could abort the pregnancy, and that for me would have meant probably never having a child, which really would have broken my heart. I could trust the medical process and my team of doctors and have a mastectomy while pregnant and go through chemotherapy, or I could do nothing and wait till the end and probably not be around now because, as you know, the having estrogen, progesterone positive, HER2 negative breast cancer, as your pregnancy, as your child, your fetus is growing inside of you, those things, the estrogen and progesterone, you know, increases in your body, so it would feed the cancer. So I probably would have died after giving birth or before, who knows. But I chose the second option, and that was to receive surgery and treatment while I was pregnant. And I had an amazing team of doctors who were so great to me at Johns Hopkins and supportive. And I'm fortunate because it's a teaching hospital, and they could do some things that were experimental in terms of um, how I was going to be put under so that it didn't affect my unborn child during the surgery. So when I had a mastectomy, I was actually partly awake for it. And I
Oh,
can't, I cannot really remember everything, but I have weird details that even just to describe it wouldn't make any sense to anybody. But I'm fortunate because that was made available to me so that to minimize the risk of another miscarriage.
yeah. I actually, they did a biopsy on my I had a tumor in my thoracic cavity. And they had to put a big old needle in there, and they actually did this thing where I was awake. Like, I was aware and awake. I don't remember all of it, but I was awake during that, and it was really bizarre. So I can imagine you have memories of them being there and having maybe conversation or whatever. It's such a weird feeling. Weird.
Yeah.
So when at Johns Hopkins, your surgery, you had a oncological surgeon and a reconstruction surgeon. What kind of reconstruction did you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I had an implant put in, and then after my son was born, I elected to have my other breast removed, and an implant put in.
And same doctor, same surgeon?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. So, and you're real comfortable with that surgeon. It's always just so good to know who the surgeons are around our country, so that people feel, comfortable going to whichever surgeon they want to go to. And because I know that they're not all created equal,
I know.
but
I don't know. Like my day of being diagnosed to when I was being wheeled into the surgical room, there was 11 days. There wasn't much time for me to process any of it, much less, do my investigative work to find out who would be the best. I trusted the process, and I'm lucky because I ended up with what everyone calls a dream team of doctors
nice.
that took care of me. So I feel fortunate.
Nice. And then you mentioned your husband and his caregiving. What kind of, like, can you go into that a little bit more about how that, so for me and my husband, he was an amazing caregiver. Um, we did go through some real big bumps, to the point where we really needed to go to therapy, which I'm so lucky to have a partner who is willing to do that, because we know that from the last I heard, the statistic was about 40% of couples split up with a diagnosis like this. I am so grateful that my husband and I are still together. Our marriage is stronger than ever, because we took action and went to therapy and we talk about stuff. So, is there anything you'd like to share, like of the lived experience with your husband being
Mhm.
a caregiver?
Well, yes, it's been interesting. I first and foremost will say that I'm really blessed to have married my best friend. And I think when life altering circumstances arise like this, where it's really hard, and it's hard. It makes all the difference when you have that person, to be your rock. Um, and we've gone through bumps, and as time has gone on for me, because I was originally diagnosed in 2012, and then my breast cancer returned as metastatic in 2017. He was poor guy. There was my return of breast cancer as metastatic. His mother's cancer developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma,
Oh gosh.
and his dad prostate cancer, all in 3 months time. So it really overwhelmed him. And I think,
Mhm.
like a lot of people that come from families where they don't talk about the hard stuff, I talk about the hard stuff. So I very much, when my second cancer came in, when I developed metastatic breast cancer in 2017, I just completely changed my life around. I mean, I was giving a 32% chance of living 5 years at that time. And I was like, well, oh, hell no, I got shit to do. I was like, nope,
Yeah.
this is going to change. So I really leaned into it. And I don't really speak about breast cancer in terms of euphemisms because it has been coupled with my journey through motherhood, has been my greatest teacher. And it has really broken me open, so that I could unpack a lot of things and reset my priorities, and which, became very simple very quickly. um, and I felt like I was becoming more spiritually aligned, and I mean that from a sense of authenticity. And there suddenly became a gap in how I connected with my husband. And so, fortunately, he was very open to going to therapy
Great.
and figuring out why he had trouble dealing with the difficult things, so that we could become closer. And it has been really, really life changing to have him be willing to do that, so that we can address the hard things together. So I feel really lucky for that.
That just makes my heart so happy. I wish that everyone would do that. Therapy is not like an evil thing. It's not, it is so healthy,
Mhm.
and we still continue to go.
That's
God,
great.
we've been going for a year and a half now, I would say, and now it's like once a month. But we went through we had to talk about a lot of elephants in the room, and we even go when we're totally great. And sometimes he'll be like, "Well, do we really need it anymore?" I go, "Babe, I don't want to go only when we have problems. I want to be able to celebrate with our therapist our marriage, and she loves us, we love her." So, thank you for sharing that. That's just so profound, and because that connection, it no matter how strong of a marriage people have, sometimes that connection is broken in certain ways, because dealing with those things, and you both had gone through a miscarriage, and and then getting pregnant again, and then finding out on the same day that you have breast cancer. Those are very difficult,
Yeah.
very tragic, very tragic. um, well, you have done some great things in your survivorship, and I know that you have the iRise Foundation. Can you share with our audience what you're doing in your survivorship and how that is impacting you and all the other women that you have involved?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Um, so when I was the first time around in after 2012, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, um, I once I was finished with my surgeries and my treatment and so forth, I set my sights on wanting to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I felt it was a difficult thing for me to do, and it surprised me because my body had completely changed from being on all, my surgeries and my the treatments themselves. I ballooned up, with inflammation, and I was in pain all the time. And your body just changes, and I was not used to that. I was used to going for a run and playing sports and, just being very active. And then I had to um, realign my body and my mind and I had to go at it quite slowly. But I said to my oncologist, because when we moved into that 6 month, see you in 6 months, I was like, wait, what? You're not giving me anything else? Like, you're setting me free? Like, what's going on here? And I noticed that, like, when I reached out to wellness experts to kind of help me train or get better, as soon as I said I was, recovering from breast cancer, it was kind of like I was radioactive in some ways. And I was like, okay, what is this about? Anyways, I did have a couple wellness experts really support me through that period of trying to make my body stronger and figuring out what foods worked, and really help with some positive psychology, which I think is really the foundation for everything. So I showed up at my 6 month appointment after I had summited Mount Kilimanjaro, and I brought my laptop in and showed my oncologist, and she was like, "You look great." What happened? And she's like, "Oh my goodness." And she didn't think I was really going to do it when I told her, like, I'm going to climb a mountain. She's like, "Okay, whatever." And so she asked me at that time, "Gillian, do you mind if I give your contact information to some women in our clinic who are young women, and they're really struggling?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." She thought it would be inspirational for them to connect with me. So they did. All 5 women connected,
Uh,
and they wanted to know how I did that. They said they wanted to do that. And then, could you help me to do what you just did? And so it planted a seed in my brain, because I was thinking to myself, if there's, like, in just this, like, small batch of women in a clinic at my hospital that are, really wanting to live a different life than they did before, there must be a lot more out there. And so that planted a seed for me for starting the iRise Above Foundation, which our goal is to really help women during and after breast cancer, young women, live an outstanding life. And we provide them with, integrated tools that are age appropriate, and resources so that they can empower themselves to heal, in moving forward. And that takes on many different forms. And so I'm really proud to say that all 5 of those women have been through our programs. They've been on our retreats. They've been on some of our adventure trips, and they're thriving. And I feel so grateful every time I hear an update from them, how they're doing. It's just so different than when I first met them. And so I'm grateful for that. The women that
yeah,
I have met within this community, they're my best friends. They're
yeah.
absolutely my friends.
Well, Amy Bonosi is the one who connected us,
Yeah.
and I had interviewed her quite some time back when she came out with her book, and we've just been in touch ever since. And just a wonderful, wonderful woman. And I know she connected you and I together, and she went to Costa Rica. I think that's the one she went on. And what a great adventure. I mean, she obviously loved it. And I'm just so grateful that something like this is out there for our community. Um, with Test Those Breasts, as you know, is a nonprofit now. And I've got a website, testtosebreasts.org, and I house a lot of resources. I have a resource page where anyone I interview that I feel can help our community, I always ask them, can I please put your website and any information on that resource page? So I'm asking you now, may I do that?
Absolutely.
That yeah, and we have them split up into like categories, so that when people go in there, we have a newly diagnosed category. We have just all surgery categories. Um, so I'll be putting that on there right away, as in fact, so that when people go on there, they can reach out to you. When is your next adventure?
The next adventure is, oh my goodness, I think we're in 2025. So we've completed our trips for our retreats and our adventure trips for this year. we go to Peru and Rainbow Mountain at the end of April in 2025. And
My
so
gosh.
anyone who's listening, there's a couple spots still remaining. And I'll say what is so wonderful. It's a wonderful problem to have. Is our retention is so high, so we get repeat participants. We have a whole group of women who it's their annual thing. They want to come back to
Mhm.
because they come together. And so the Costa Rica trip, I think we had 14 women, and I believe 8 of them were returned. And
Is
so
Amy coming back?
yes, she's coming. She's like much fun. We're also doing more of like an active hiking trip um in September this time next year to Tour de Mont Blanc in
Oh,
France, Italy, and Switzerland.
so fun. Well, I mean, I'm a backpacker. I was not able to backpack for a few years, obviously, a couple years anyway. The last backpack trip that I had gone on before breast cancer was in 2021. We backpacked the Ruby Mountains, and it was about 38 miles. It was brutal. It was, but I did it.
Yeah,
And I hadn't been backpacking. I mean, I went on a couple prior to that on our anniversary, but I hadn't been before that for like 20, or 15 years or whatever. But I just went on a backpacking trip a couple of months ago for the first time since breast cancer. And I was able to carry my pack, and we went 19 miles. So that was really good for me. So to be able to see if I could actually do it, and so very adventurous.
well,
So
it's
Mhm.
interesting because what I like to do in designing these, whether it's the retreats or the adventure trips, I like to get women outside of their comfort zones, right? A little bit, push the boundary a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, and I've not once had a situation where a woman said, that was too much for me. Never. It's always like, can we do that again? Like, just so
Like
excited, like we're
yeah.
paddling down a rock face, for example, we were on NBC and what was that, 2021? Came with us to Utah, and it was like a big climbing trip. And it was really funny because the producer was deathly terrified of heights. So she had to rappel down a rock face and didn't love it.
Did you put out a video about that?
uh
Was there a video about that her being deathly scared but did it anyway? Or was that something with Kristen Dahlgren? I thought I saw a video.
Christian was on that particular trip. Yes. So I think that was part of the Today Show, the NBC piece that
Yes.
we had.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I remember, because I was like, but I mean, it's so cool that it was all captured on video, all of them. I thought that was so cool. I love it when we get out of our comfort zone. I mean, it's not easy. But yeah, by the end of it, you're like, holy cow, I did that. I actually did that.
Right.
I'm
And
actually,
we've been through breast cancer. I mean,
yes.
we can do
Yeah,
anything.
we can. I just had Mohs surgery on my leg. I've got these squamous skin cancers popping up on my body from, stupid things I did when I was a kid. And I I don't know if you know what Mohs surgery is.
I
Do you know
don't.
what that it's so it's the name of someone, MOHS. It's when they go in and they take out a layer, go and test it, come back, take out however many layers until the cancer is gone. So by the time you leave the office, the cancer is gone. But it left this enormous hole, like a big bomb went off on my leg.
It
And
sounds
I looked at it, and usually I would be like, "Ugh," like, oh God, this is so gross. But then it wasn't like that. And I thought to myself, well, I've seen a lot of gross things as far as this breast cancer goes, tubes hanging out, fluids, big old incisions and all that. No wonder I'm okay with looking at it. But I sent it to my husband. He's like, holy cow. Like, that looks like it does. It was very traumatic, and it takes a really long time to to heal and stuff like that. So we can do big things. We can do
Yep,
hard things.
great.
Anyway, well, I just am really happy that we got to connect and we got to talk about iRise because um and that's what I was going to ask you. I'm 56 years old, going on 57 years old. I'm not a young spring chicken. Do you have like an age group of people that go, or is there like, because you always talk about young women, and I feel young. I still feel like I'm in my probably 30s, but what does that look like? Who can go?
Well, I laugh because I recently had a conversation with my breast friends about the fact that, I'm approaching 50, so I'm no longer a spring chicken either. Um and, so but we have women. The youngest we had in one of our wellness programs was 24, and there was a long history of genetic breast cancer in her family, and wow, it was a lot. And there were a lot of questions that are unique challenges and then associated needs that someone like herself faces, who is openly gay, and questions about, I don't have a partner, do I preserve my eggs, what do I do? So I think that the needs of the young community are different than the postmenopausal
Mhm.
counterparts within our community. Um, but there are women, your age, my age, but it's okay. Like, come join us. I'd love to have you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love it. But I also think that there is a space for people my age and your age to be with people her age.
Yes.
I remember very, very well being her age and into my late 20s, listening to older women talk about, because I was always like, oh, am I ever going to find a partner? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, you will. I mean, you just be open to it. And little did I know, when I was 34, I met the love of my life, and I understood what they were talking about. So I feel like there is a really important space for older and younger women to be together. I
Mm,
got most of my advice from older women, and I am so grateful for that.
yeah.
So I'm glad that you can mix this together. I am actually really, really interested in going to Peru.
Oh, I come join us. And you just underscored something that I really want to mention, is that I started iRise, the concept of iRise, prior to being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And I've intentionally included not only early stage breast cancers, but also metastatic within our community. And not because I felt like when I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, I felt marginalized. And I think that we as a community who are, thriving being alive with metastatic breast cancer and not dying from it,
Mhm.
have a lot of wisdom to offer. And I think there's a lot of teaching moments that we can be shared both ways. So it's been really important to me, even though I've gotten some heat from the metastatic community and like, why are you not focusing on metastatic? Well, I wasn't always metastatic. So I think there's a lot of knowledge to be shared
Yes.
um, with early stage breast cancers. And so that is my goal, to be inclusive.
I love that because my friend Natalie Stevenson here in Reno, she has the nonprofit Cancer Community Clubhouse, is living with metastatic breast cancer. And she does talk about it's important for people to understand it. It's important for people to understand too that, you know, you can be living it with metastatic breast cancer and being active, an active part of community, having friendships and being happy, and at the same time having this difficult time over here, over on the other side.
Yeah.
Um, because it is a struggle, and people need, and I remember when I was deemed disease free, most people, including my husband, had this thought that, well, everything is going to go back to normal now. You're done with that. You've gotten through all that. Onward. And that's just not how it works. And I still struggle. I have PTSD when I have to go into my oncologist. I have sent PTSD. I have just so much. And it's really hard for people to understand that. When you're living with metastatic breast cancer, people have to allow people to struggle,
Mhm.
I would say. And but it's really hard for them to understand. So I really think that bringing that awareness is really important.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to share that, I'm in what they call radical remission. So I was diagnosed in early 2017, and here we are at the end of 2024. And this is my 6th year of no evidence of disease in my body. And I feel really grateful for that. And so I really, really encourage women to, you know, believe the diagnosis, but challenge the prognosis. And I think there's a lot of women who have the metastatic diagnosis who maybe aren't encouraged in a way to really challenge that the way they could. And we want to be that support for them within our community to do that. And so in this last trip to Costa Rica, the restorative retreat, there were 3 of us, and all of us are in this radical remission, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and it teaches us a lot about being in the here and now, and gratitude for the smallest of things. And I in this experiential essay that I've just completed for submission, I talk a lot about what it means to be at peace. And to me, that's wholeness. And so, there's the yin and the yang in the world. You can have absolute joy and also grief. You and I were talking about this before. This past weekend, we had to say goodbye to our sweet dog of more than 10 years who grew up with my kids. And it was absolutely the most gut wrenching pain to watch my children just hurt so badly saying goodbye to their best friend. And and then we could sit around afterwards and laugh and look at photos and just be so joyful for the love that we got to experience and share together. So that's life. It's the wholeness, and embracing and sitting with the things of grief and the pain and the sorrow. It's all temporary. And so if you can hold both close to your heart, I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah. Your dog's name was Juno.
Yeah.
And yes, you and I have had these conversations. Right before our call, I talked to you about our dog, Delilah, who we lost last November and also was a German Shepherd dog, which, we love German Shepherds. And it is, I grieved very hardcore because Delilah got me through the death of my mother in October of 2019. Like, she was there for me all the time. And then, of course, she got me through cancer. She would be sitting in my bathroom with me and in my healing room, but my bathroom when I was sick from chemo. And so to have her, I'm grateful that she held on until after the cancer, because we thought we were going to lose her during the cancer. She had gotten sick, but then she lived. But I was grateful that she held on
Mhm.
until after all that happened. And I'm so grateful that she was there. I'm really, really sorry to hear about Juno. And I'm so glad that you were able to be there as a family, to sit in the grief and and go through all that together. Because you're right, it's part of life. And we
Yep.
need to know that it's okay to cry and grieve and all of that. You're
Yeah.
such a wonderful person.
Oh.
I'm so glad that we connected, and I love our conversations. You and I are very, very much aligned on a lot of things. And I'm glad that you have your 2 children, and that that part really worked out well for you.
It did.
Um, my question to you, you gave some great advice for people who are living with metastatic cancer or, going through cancer, whatever, active cancer right now. And even after, being deemed disease free. One of the questions I really like to ask is, there are some things that in hindsight I think about before I got breast cancer that I wish I would have known. Like I wish I would have known just to go into the doctor when I felt those zingers in my breasts, those burning sensations in my breasts. I wish I would have known more about the process of breast cancer, all of that. There's so many things. Is there anything that you might want to um, kind of give advice to people who've never even been diagnosed?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I think about all the time having a daughter. Um, that would be to listen to your body, and maybe slow down a little bit, make time for self care. Because I think when you don't honor your body as a temple, whether it be your mind, your spirit, your physical being, I think that's where dis-ease can start to manifest. So I think it's really important to make you as a whole person a priority, um and make time for it. The job will still be there, the laundry will still be there. Just make time for it, because I guarantee, it's going to make you a better mother, a better spouse, a better friend, a better employee, a better person in this world, because you show up differently, and how you show up is what matters. That's what sends ripples through the universe. And so
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think that so many of us are so busy all the time. Like we have, women in general are multitaskers. We do so many things. We take care of people. We put our own personal stuff over here to do this, and it it sucks that sometimes something like this has to happen before we like wake up, come on, and I am now, when I get too busy, because I even though I'm retired, I still get too busy. um I work with a lot of grassroots people here. I'm always busy doing stuff. I've got the podcast, just all kinds of things. But I'm really good at saying no now. And
Yeah.
I'm really good at saying, you know what, Jamie, you have far too many things on your calendar. So I'm really good at moving things around. If I know that I should, I will move things around. And I will take that time to relax. I'm really good at relaxing. So that's just one thing that came out for me, is that I'm good at that now.
It took having being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer for me to really get that. I After my first diagnosed, after I was complete, I completed treatment and I climbed the mountain and everything. I went right back to being a workhorse and having the stress of the workplace. And I didn't learn my lesson the way I wish I did. Um, but I'm exactly right where I need to be now. So it's kind of a moot point. But yeah, it's important to have boundaries, because when you say yes to something, you inherently say no to something else. So making space, and not making space for the things that are important for self-care or that matter to you, is really critical for your well-being, I believe. And so it
It
can.
is. It is, and when you get into your 50s, we really do, we are able to say no and put things aside. I always preface a conversation, or if I'm gonna ask somebody to do something, I always preface it, and I just did this at the Pride, festival last week. I always say, "It's okay if you say n," and then I ask, and then they feel like they can say no if they want to,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important for us
It's a
to
really
understand.
interesting
Yeah.
way to say it. And I bet you get way more honest responses that
I
way.
do. I
Yeah.
do, because I want people to say that to me. I want to feel like I can say no. I want to feel like I can have boundaries. So I
Yep.
love communicating with strong women like you, because we all sort of are in the know of some things that we didn't know before. And so I just really appreciate your being here. And I am going to look at that trip because I really feel like it's time for me to do something like that.
Join us. We have an amazing group of women
Love
assembled
it.
so it's going to be really, really wonderful.
Love it. Well, in the show notes to my audience, I want them to know that I'm going to be putting your social media handles on there, your website, and any other resources that you would like to put on the show notes. Just let me know and I will put that in there. All right. So is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, I'm just grateful for this opportunity and so happy to connect and have a new friend. And I hope
Yeah.
that others out there reach out and want to join our iRise Above community because we're always welcoming new people. So
Awesome. Well, I do want to let you know, I want to just real quickly say that you are Test Those Breasts was just nominated as one of the top podcasts in Reno. I didn't even know I didn't know anybody nominated me. And my husband was reading it and I was like, "Oh my God." So, I want to keep this thing going, and so to my audience, just please, please, please go to your favorite platform to listen and rate and review this podcast. I would really want to keep it going. So thank you for being here, Gillian. I appreciate it. And to my audience, thank you for being here. And we will see you all next time on the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Bye for now.
bye bye.